Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
For the first 100 customers, you need to do things which are very non-scalable, like reaching out to your friends, figuring out some innovative ways to get those first 100 customers. We think there is one customer. You can't say there is one customer. There is a customer who is able to pay much more compared to another customer who is able to pay much less. There's a huge difference. So what needs to be seen is that how the customer problem ties up with the customer segment. So guys, we'll talk about the marketing for early stage companies. What marketing basically does is fundamentally approach customers who are going to use your product. So be it early stage company or a late stage company, the objective remains same. What changes is the approach. When you are an early stage company, there is much more scarcity of funds compared to a late stage company. And the objective is to quickly get the product market fit done. So in that objective, what I have particularly seen is that what works great and which worked very well for nobroker.com also was that you focus on the initial adopters for every product which is new. And if you are an early stage company, fundamentally what you are going to do is something which nobody has ever done before. So for this, it is important that you focus on the initial adopters. Now, where do you find these initial adopters? They may be your friends, they may be a very niche segment. For example, instead of focusing on Bombay, it may be a specific college near in Wadala in Bombay, and that's perfectly fine. Secondly, a common mistake which I have basically seen people doing when they think about marketing in the early stage companies is that they focus on scalability. Everything which they think about in terms of marketing, they worry whether this particular channel will be scalable or not. So for example, what we did was that when it came to property listings, we are a no-broker platform which basically lists property and then people contact those properties. So what we used to see was that lot of property owners would hang this to-let board outside their house, right? Which is about saying that, okay, if you are a passerby and you see this board, you please call me at this number and we'll try to get this property rented. Now we realize that these are exactly the customers who are trying to avoid a broker and do the deal directly. But how do you approach these customers? So what we used to do in the initial days was, we'll click photos. So we founders will click photo, or our initial employees, they will click photos. And then once we reach office, our call center will call them and we'll ask them whether you want to list property on our site, we'll list the property. Now this is a very manual way, and you may question that, is this way to reach customers, isn't it a non-scalable way? It sounded so that's a non-scalable way. But the objective is to reach customers. Objective is not to find the marketing approach or the channel which will eventually help you scale. And what happened in this particular case is that we were able to reach out to the exact customers who were our target segment. And as time passed by and when we became bigger, then we started thinking how do we scale it. And then we came with a solution that we now have a click and earn model in which anybody who is a passerby can download our NoBroker app, can take the photo of that to-let board, upload on the app. Our call center will still call them, list the property, and we will give 100 rupees as a fees in the Paytm account of the submitter. So now it's very huge. It basically gives a very large number of properties even today on NoBroker platform. But the main lesson is that when you are an early stage startup, you think about reaching out to your customers. Don't think about how you are going to scale that particular approach. So to build on this further, one of the key objective when you are building a firm is how do I get my first 100 customers, first 500 customers. And if it's a platform like us, then it is not just one set of customers, you need to bring two set of customers. So for us, what matters is not just bringing first 100 tenants, but also to bring first 100 owners. Now, as we were just discussing, that what is most important is you find any way, scalable, non-scalable, but with the highest ROI so that you can get up to your first 100 customers. So the way in which we got our first 100 customers was a mixture of reaching out to your friends. So you need to be shameless about it. Call your friends, ask them to download your product, use your product. In terms of tenants, it was easier for us because tenants are more digital savvy and hence many of our friends and some Google AdWords could help us reach there. So the approach for owners is different now, because owners are not so digitally savvy. They do not go on Google and say, I want to rent out my flat. So you cannot use a Google AdWord to basically reach out to owners in a significant way. So we understood that the approach to owners is going to be different. So to reach out to the first owners, what we did was click and earn, which is basically to get the to-let boards and get those customers. The main lesson is that for the first 100 customers, you need to do things most probably which are very, very non-scalable, like reaching out to your friends, figuring out some innovative ways to get those first 100 customers. I would go on to the extent of saying that if you are, for example, a coaching institute, it's perfectly okay to take physical pamphlets and stand outside the office or the classes of another competitor and distribute that. Can it be scalable? No, it's fine. The first 100 customers have to be achieved in a way which has the highest ROI, and even if it is non-scalable, it's perfectly fine. So let's talk about how do you understand your product, how do you filter your product to an extent which basically has a highest impact. Now when we think about product, I think fundamentally you need to think about customer problem. A product which is just good to see and features within a product which you personally like has no value for a larger scale up unless it is rooted into the customer problem. So one of the main things which I have personally seen many people getting wrong is to build the product in such a manner which basically looks very glamorous or looks very exciting or which is very good to code. But it has to be rooted continuously in terms of what customer wants. Because you are most probably making something which nobody is providing it, either fully or partially, and you are basically creating a new ground. It has to be rooted into what problem you are solving. Now, product has to be seen in the context of the customer problem that you are solving, and customer problem has to be seen in terms of the customer segment that you are targeting. Because what many times happens is that we think there is one customer. Now, even in our business, which is about real estate, you can't say there is one customer. There is a customer who is able to pay much more compared to another customer who is able to pay much less. Some guy lives in a premium society, some guy lives in not so premium society. In terms of their geographical presence, in terms of their ability to pay, there is a huge difference. So what needs to be seen is that how the customer problem ties up with the customer segment. In terms of customer segment, let me give you an example. So our entire product is about saving brokerage. We met someone and a VC who basically said that who cares about brokerage? I pay brokerage, I have a couple of houses and I pay brokerage every year, it's fine, it's a small fraction of the cost that I incur. But we had to tell him that, boss, you are not our customer segment. The customer problem basically might look very commonsensical, appealing to perhaps every customer segment, but it is not so. And you are not our customer, because for you, on the time money value curve, money has very little importance. But for majority of the people, for the mass market, brokerage is equal to 1 month of rent, which constitutes more than 1/3 of their monthly income, and which is a big deal, and hence it needs to be saved. So one common problem which I have seen is that people think that customer product is applicable for all customer segments. It is not so. So there might be some customer segments which you decide doesn't have the ability to pay for your product, but they are very good in terms of building liquidity and building word of mouth. So perhaps it can be made free for them. Then there is a set of customers who will use it and who want to pay for it. So hence you can go for a freemium product, which we went for. So the objective is to basically build the product based on the customer problem, build on the customer problem depending upon the customer segment that you are targeting for, and just keep on building there and make sure that you are able to come to a sweet spot where you have the right customer problem, right customer segment, and the people who will pay for that product. So let's talk about market, and let's cover market from two perspectives. One is, what is the size of your market, and second, how should you approach this market that you want to conquer. So when we talk about the size of the market, it is basically a function of the customers that you are targeting, which customer segment you are targeting, how they are available across cities, and how much is their ability to pay, and hence how much would be the total market size. This is one area where I have seen lot of fellow entrepreneurs losing this point. See, you might have discovered a great product, but now the decision is that do you want to build this business which is going to require external funds for the first few years before it becomes profitable, or should you try to be profitable from say within 3-6 months and then bootstrap it for making it a good business. What happens is that many people start a business, they don't calculate in their mind, at least back of envelope calculation as to how much market size is. For example, one of my friends started business and the all India market, which is the ability of customer to pay, is 4,000 crores. And this market is competed by banks, by wealth manager companies, everybody. Now, if 4,000 crore is the market size of entire market, in which your ability to capture 10% market is also going to take some time, at least 3-4 years, which means you are looking for a revenue of 400 crores, and that also under all positive conditions. For such a market, it is not advisable to go and ask for VC funding, because they would also realize it immediately, and hence it makes sense to bootstrap it, make it a profitable, good business. So finding out the market size is one of the most important things. In fact, I would say that even before you start spending money in terms of getting customers, this should come first. Second thing is about how to execute the market that you are trying to approach. Now here what I have seen is that many people try to feel good by expanding their product across cities. See, I have a product which is ready, and if it's a technology product, it's very easy to scale it to some other city. But in businesses like say NoBroker, it's very easy for us to expand to 50 cities today. By at least on our product side, we can expand to 50 cities. But the problem which is going to be there is that if people don't get a house in Hyderabad, there's no point in expanding to Kochi, because you need to first of all crack a city and then go somewhere else. So if you are starting something of your own, then it makes sense to not take a city, perhaps even take a micro market. So don't worry about Mumbai, just do your experiment in Bandra or a college in Bandra and make sure that your product delivers, customer pays, and you are there. Then start expanding. See, expanding is like a vanity metric. It feels good when you're in more cities. 5 of your friends will call you and say that, yeah, we saw that you are in our city. But what matters is solving the problem right. So don't try to grab too much market unless you are able to solve the customer problem in the market that you already are in. So now let's talk about understanding your customer and following them. So we will talk about the problem that we faced or the error that NoBroker made in the initial days. So initially, I personally thought that customer is customer. So what we are offering is we are connecting both parties together directly with each other, saving brokerage. That's what we are doing, and every customer will perceive us in the same way. But we soon discovered that within this broad problem, there are different ways to solve it. For example, on the time money value curve, the time that a bachelor wants to save is much less compared to what a professional wants to save. So we realized that because on the time money value curve, people from different age, their ability to pay, geography varies. So their expectations from the product also varies, and hence our sub-products and our pricing strategy needs to be different. And this comes from a detailed knowledge of the customer. So if you treat every customer as same, which is very easy to treat because you in your mind is also a customer, and you somehow tend to assume that every customer follows the same path that you follow, but that's not the case. So you need to understand each and every customer, different customer segment, and the best way to do is to talk to a lot of customers. So especially at founder level, what starts happening is after a couple of months or years, you know that I know every customer, but you don't know because customer expectations also keep on changing. So you need to follow those customers, which bring us to the second point, that in our case, for example, 5 years back, whenever we used to post a property, putting a Google location on the map was a good thing to do. That okay, customers can go to that Google map location and also see the house, it's easier for them. In the past 5 years, the way in which customer has started using Google Map has changed drastically. Now almost everybody is dependent on Google Map to go to some place, and hence the customer expectation of the accuracy of the location has changed. Now if the location is 100 meters off, people don't like it. So if you just assume and concretize the definition of customer segment or their problems, then you are going to miss big time. You need to constantly talk to customers, take the feedback and understand how their expectations are changing, because they change. And in the tech world, they change even faster. So we need to continuously change our product, our offering, our pricing to match it. Basically, the objective is to keep on knowing the customer well, different customer segments well, and follow them, then align them with your product and pricing. Now let's talk about pricing, which is of interest to many. And the way in which you have to think about pricing is multiple ways. But the primary objective should be to think about what is the value that you are adding to customer and what is the price point at which customer will be happy to use your services. Customer should not be too happy to use your services, because then you are charging too less, and should not be too upset paying the price, because then you are overcharging. So the way in which at NoBroker we did was, we have a freemium model in which we say that people can come and post their property or take contacts of the owners free of cost, and after a threshold or for value added services or for taking a relationship manager, there are different pricing plans. And the way in which we started is that we started testing waters first, because nobody ever in the world charges customers in real estate on an upfront basis. We were the first one to do it. So it was also about changing customer habit in a small manner and asking customer to trust us. So we started with 1,000 rupees, and we said, and we observed customer behavior. We put a lot of fight to ensure that you deliver value which is much more compared to the price that we are charging. And then it also basically then moves to the hit and trial way. But to come back to the original price point, what we kept in mind is that what is the value which customer feels and versus what is the alternative cost which customer incurs. So that always needs to keep in the mind. In our case, we knew that the alternative cost to the customer is the brokerage which customer is paying. Yes, some customers don't pay, but majority of the customers pay brokerage. So we have a sense as to how much money we are talking about. Now we wanted to keep a flat fees, so we need to come up with a mean sort of way in which, because customers pay 10,000 rupees also as a brokerage, they also pay 1 lakh rupees as a brokerage, depending upon the type of property they are seeing. So we thought, where do our majority of our paying customers lie? What is the cost to them, and hence what should be our pricing? So we started with that pricing. There is no exact science for pricing. It's basically a mixture of science, analytics, and also intuition, and then followed by the feedback from customers. So based on the alternative cost, based on the fact that we are asking customers to pay upfront, we came with the pricing. Then we saw whether our offering matches with the customer expectation. We kept on iterating on it. Then we came up with more product, which is about relationship manager. We started thinking and talking to customers for which thing they are paying even today. So for example, core we are in real estate, but many of our customers said that they use packers and movers, and they struggle to find a good packer and mover whom they can trust, because there are only couple of branded players. Apart from that, most are unorganized players. So we said, okay, this is a problem that we will solve for you. We will curate the packers and movers. We'll recommend those packers and movers to you, and we'll make sure that they deliver a good service. The pricing for that again was about alternative cost versus the value that customer perceives. So it is basically a hit and trial in which we start and then we basically iterate. But what I would suggest to do is that do reach a point where customer says, no, this is too much. Because if you are always very conservative in terms of pricing, it's very difficult or longer to become profitable. And because the objective of any enterprise is to finally be a profitable company. So what we keep on doing is, as we see that we are adding more and more value, we keep on tinkering with the pricing, and we are okay upsetting customer once in a while, even if says that no, this is too much, and then reducing it back, but trying to test the water in terms of what is the right pricing versus the value that the customer perceives. So now let's talk about marketing strategy, and let's especially focus on different type of channels that you want to use to reach out to your customers. So let me start with an example from NoBroker. As NoBroker, we have two sets of customers that we need to reach. And the entire approach about which marketing channel should I use should not be based upon which one looks good. So in case you have some money, you should not be doing hoardings because it feels nice and 5 people will notice it. The objective is to get customers with the highest ROI. So the key message here is large amount of customers and ROI should be really high. So in our case, we realize that we have two set of customers, one which is seekers who are much more digitally savvy, and then we have property owners who rely much more on trust and who are much more offline, if you can say so. So what we started doing was that word of mouth continued to remain our biggest source of getting customers. But in terms of paid marketing channels, then we started using Google AdWords, Facebook and so on, which we continue to do that, and that gives us a huge amount of customers. But I would say that SEO works like crazy here. So whatever effort you can do from day one to build a very, very good domain rank and focus on your SEO efforts, then that's going to make sure that you don't end up paying the Google tax for the rest of your life, or at least pay less of that tax. So we realize that digital savvy customers should be brought by word of mouth and through SEO, and in the paid channels through the paid online channels. As far as offline customers are concerned, then we started with the BTL activities. BTL means below the line activities, which means you try to target the customer directly, where he stays, where he lives, where he works. So we said that we are going to have auto branding, we are going to have no parking boards in front of the houses where customers live, and the objective was to reach out to those customers specifically, which works great. Then there is something called ATL marketing, which is about above the line marketing, which means hoardings and TV ads. So you cannot target a specific locality customer there, but you can have a very high reach. So once you have more cities, once you can make sure that the leakage is very low in your ATL activity, then you should focus on the ATL activity. So today we do all type of activities. We do ATL, we do BTL, we do online. But I would say that the most effective strategy is word of mouth. If your product is good, if one customer is telling this to 10 more customers, there is no substitute. So imagine a WhatsApp group of a housing society, and somebody on that WhatsApp group just posts, so how do I rent my house? What should I do? And another stranger who doesn't even know this customer or this person replies on that WhatsApp group of society saying, why don't you try no broker? That's it. The work is done. There is no marketing strategy, there is no marketing spend which can ever conquer this. So the primary thing is that your product should be such that customers keep on talking about it. So even today at a large scale, majority of our customers come from word of mouth. Yes, you need to make more and more customers aware about it, and hence it comes about online, offline, ATL, BTL and different strategies. But word of mouth should be the concrete base on which the entire business stands on. So here our suggestion is that it does not make sense to chase after vanity metrics, which some people think sound good, but actually add no value. The objective here is to reach out to more and more customers, make sure that they love your product and you make them happy, and they talk about it to 10 more people. So let's just focus on this core thing and let's not get disturbed with anything which just sounds cool but is not actually helping your business. So in terms of the metrics, I think the most important thing is to look at the funnel and all the metrics which come with it, which basically means how many customers you are touching, how many page visits are happening, how much traffic is there, then how they are getting converted into their interaction, their retention on the platform, the time they spend on the platform, how many of them register, how many of them finally use the service, how many of them pay, how many of them interact. The entire funnel needs to be tracked very, very closely. So any marketing initiative that you do, you might be doing a ATL activity, a BTL activity, all of that needs to translate to the funnel. So I have spent perhaps 100 rupees on this activity. Did it translate into the output which I was looking for? So ROI continues to be the most important metric here, but it is important to focus both on lead metrics as well as lag metric, so you can figure out where I am going wrong. If the lag metric is not working out, which means you are not getting the output, perhaps the problem is in terms of input metric. You are getting wrong type of customers and too many of them, which is reducing the conversion percentage. And hence you need to basically change your input metric or tinker here and there. Keep on executing it, keep on iterating it so that all your metrics point toward the thing that you really want. Now, this basically is how you make sure that your marketing money matches with the output that you're looking for. Apart from this, couple of other things also come into light, which is about that, okay, I have got this customer, he has perhaps paid to the amount that I wanted, but shouldn't I look at the customer life cycle value? How much am I going to earn from it in the life cycle? And should there be repeat orders? What should be the frequency of it? What is the ticket size? So in no broker case, what we realize is that yes, customer is going to come again after a couple of years. He may come after next year, once he again wants to change the house, or after 4 or 5 changing of the houses, he will have enough savings to buy a house. And hence our engagement with the customer will continue for many years to come, but it is going to engage and disengage. Should we be worried about it? Should we force customer to continuously engage with us? We think that the answer is no. We are in this business where we are trying to solve a customer problem. If at any point of time he has a real estate problem or transaction which he wants to execute, we have to help him. When he doesn't need us, it's perfectly fine for customer to disengage, and we have to wait and hope that the service that we have given is good enough for him to again consider us after a year. So no point in unnecessarily engaging with the customer or forcing him to engage somehow. Doesn't make sense, doesn't add value, irritates customer. In our business, what we realize is that it is important that we serve the customer, and the customer should be able to get the value, and we should be able to get enough money from him so that that transaction is profitable for us. Now, whatever future transactions happen are of additional value to us. So over years now what we are seeing is that this approach is paying well, because the first time the customer comes, we ensure that whatever marketing money we are paying to get that customer, we get a value which is multiple times of that, which means that all the future transactions are basically free, and basically we earn on top of it. Then second thing is about at what frequency he is going to come and at what frequency he is going to use us. So while the strategy is to make sure that we make enough money in the first year of customer registering with us, it's extremely important to see when the customer is coming and whether the customer keeps on coming or not, because that's the real value that we are generating, and that's a surrogate of this measure that yes, customer really likes what we are providing. Just like any other startup, the challenge is changed. Earlier it was about how to convince the first employee, how to convince the first investor. Then it changed to in terms of how to scale to multiple cities, how to keep on executing well, which new products to launch, how should it match with the pricing. And I think over this longer journey, the challenge which continues and which we need to make sure that we always win is to ensure that whichever things we held very dear to us when we were small, which is about making sure that every customer problem gets solved. Even when we become bigger and bigger, now we are 80 lakh cumulative customers, we are in upwards of 10 cities, we need to make sure that we hold on to that belief that every customer who touches NoBroker should be happy. And that is a challenge which we need to keep on meeting as we become bigger and bigger. So my favorite book is the book called The Reluctant Billionaire, and this is a book about Dilip Shanghvi and how he built Sun Pharma. So intuitively feels a little odd that this is not a book which is about consumer internet or a technology business, but this remains to be my favorite book. The reason is that Dilip Shanghvi came from a background which was a non-pharma background. He is a person who is not even a science graduate, he's a commerce graduate. He had very little money when he started. So what was his journey? What are the steps that he took which were counterintuitive when already large pharma companies existed in India with large pockets of money? And how over 10, 20, 30 years he built one of the world's largest pharma companies. The entire journey is full of amazing insights on how to build a team, how to build a business, how to think from first principle and really think about customers. So that remains to be my favorite book, and I strongly recommend it. Second thing which I really like is the Everything Store, which is about Amazon and Jeff Bezos, and especially the letters which Jeff Bezos has written to shareholders in the past 20 years. It's amazing to see how his focus on customer service remains unchanged. And whether you read 1997 year letter or whether you read a letter which is of last year, that focus continues. So that gives a lot of insight into the way in which the world's largest e-commerce player thought about. So my advice to a new founder is very counterintuitive. I will ask him that don't be a founder. Question why do you want to be a founder? And the specific reason is that when we look at founders, when we look at companies, we mainly look at the companies which are successful and sounds very glamorous. But actually the truth is that once you leave your job, 5 people will call you and congratulate you of the brave step that you have taken. But after a month, you will be sitting alone in your house, on your bed with your legs folded in front of a computer, and you will see 5 customers on your website. And nobody is calling you then. So it's a very, very long journey. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You should not be founding a company just because it sounds sexy or it sounds glamorous. You should believe in the customer problem that you are solving, because there are going to be a lot of instances, if not in the first month, then perhaps in the 3rd year, where the question would be, should you continue running the company? Is it worth the effort? So a very grounded belief in the customer problem is essential. Don't do it for the wrong reasons. Do it because you believe in the customer problem and you are not too much attached to your notion of the customer problem. If tomorrow customer says, this is not I want something else, you should be flexible enough to change your business to suit what customer wants.